dose of psilocybin found to physically change the human brain. It is found that a single high dose of psilocybin can lead to physical changes in the brain. The study, which is in preprint and has not yet been peer-reviewed, involved 28 healthy participants who had no prior experience with psilocybin or other psychedelics. Participants were first given a 1 milligram placebo dose, and then were given a 25 milligram dose 1 month later. I believe 25 milligrams is about equal to around 2.5 grams. Results from EEG, functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, and diffusion tensor imaging recordings were analyzed to assess if the human brain underwent any physical changes after consuming psilocybin. The results showed that anatomical and functional brain changes were detected from 1 hour to 1 month after the administration of the 25 milligram dose in all subjects, changes that were not seen after the 1 milligram dose. While numerous studies have shown that psilocybin can produce profound psychological changes in humans, this is the first study to show that the brain is physically altered after consumption. In a post on Dumpster Fire that is X and formerly Twitter, Dr. Robin Carhart Harris explained the physical changes observed in two frontal cortex to subcortex tracts, which became more compact after 1 month following the 25 milligram dose. Add that there was no change after placebo. We don't know what it means, but it was a solid detectable change. These results echo previous studies finding that single doses of psilocybin can alter the brain. 2021, a groundbreaking study by researchers at Yale University found that psilocybin given to mice increased the density and size of dendritic spines, nerve cells that aid in the transmission of information between neurons in the brain, like extra Wi-Fi antenna. Behavioral analysis after 1 milligram and 25 milligrams psilocybin. Current study increases in cognitive flexibility, ecological insight, and well-being were seen 1 month after the 25 milligram dose of psilocybin. All but one participant rated their high-dose experience with psilocybin as the single most unusual conscious state of their entire lives. Single exception rated it within their top 5 most unusual. Not too bad. Present work sheds important new light on human brain changes after first-time high-dose psilocybin, the author said in the preprint. Adding that between subject confirmatory studies are now required to examine the reliability of these novel findings. This is very interesting information, and I hope it leads to a lot more studies to find out what these psychedelics are doing positively in our brain, improve our perspective, our outlook, allay depression, make us smarter and more well-rounded as people. Lastly, on the translation, pronunciation real quick of psilocybin, scientific words are pronounced with a Greek translation, which means mostly short vowel sounds. However, because of the long-standing pronunciation of psilocybin, it is also it is correct. I say psilocybin. You can say psilocybin as well if you'd like. Other than that, I'm very interested in what the doctors and the rest of my hosts and participants have to say here. This is St. Germain on a beautiful Friday for the High at 9 News. Let's go.
Fun guys. They're all mold, Mathieu St. Germain.
No, mold is a fungus, but mushrooms are not mold.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, wow.
We already had that conversation today.
Yeah, Jason doesn't concede. Admit you made a mistake. Brett Baer did it, Jason. Why can't you?
Brett Baer did not make no mistakes.
What I really like to see in this study is we're seeing permanent changes. Kind of scaffolds off the Johns Hopkins study, which has shown that 1 mega dose of psilocybin has positive effects on personality and mood for over a year. 1 dose. And I think what we see, especially when we look at cultures that use psychedelics, for the most part, there are some notable exceptions, but for the most part, most of the cultures that use psychedelics I don't know if anyone here has had a chance to interface with them, but I had the chance to interface with Huichols, with Yawanawa, with several different, with the Shipibo. And what I find is these psychedelic using cultures tend to have more led by women, do have a friendlier outlook on life, tend to have a more inclusive outlook, a more nature-focused and respectful outlook towards nature and their other fellow human beings as nature. And I think what we're going to continue to see is more and more scientific evidence, psychedelics help us to step away from and allay our fear that is caused by our feeling of being a discrete, separate entity stuck in a giant clockwork universe. We do these things, what we see is there's actually no true boundary between us and everything else. We're all actually a drop in a giant ocean. We're part of a superorganism. And like any organism, we wouldn't cut off our finger in order to make our other fingers feel better. We would find a way to heal that finger, to integrate the rest of ourselves, to make our entire body whole. I think the more that we look at ways to release ourselves from the us versus them dichotomy, the less strife we're going to see on the planet. The more we realize, we look around and realize the only people on this planet are us, we can initiate better strategies to navigate this world in peace together, taking care of each other.
Matthew, did it say, what kind or what strain here, or is this just psilocybin in general?
25 milligrams of psilocybin. The reason being, you can only use discrete molecule therapies in these type of studies. Again, what we really need to do is we need to start some sort of a nonprofit. I've asked for help. I don't really have enough free time, and I'm not really smart enough to put together the grant writing. I need a COO type person who would like to help me. But what we really need is we need a public policy foundation that takes donations and uses that money to lobby Washington, Congress, the president, and the FDA for a new track in FDA studies that can be funded that don't just use molecule therapies. We need
keep your cell phone close.
We need
keep your cell phone close today. I'm gonna be with one.
Please,
I got one. I'm going to be presenting with this afternoon here at the Cannabis and Psychedelics Entrepreneur Conference.
Please,
Gaetano Lardieri. I'll link you with
whatever effort I can. I'm not a COO guy. I'm not great at I can do spreadsheets, but I'm not great at them. But what we need is this public policy foundation lobbies the FDA for a new track so that we can do studies on ayahuasca, that we can do studies on ibogaine. But not only that, we can do studies on rosemary, because right now, do a study on rosemary. You can take a terpene out of rosemary, which they did. They found that smelling this terpene before tests actually increased memory recall by a demonstrable percentage over placebo. However, maybe rosemary by itself is amazing and has so many more healing powers. There's glyceric acid in licorice that helps with gastrointestinal and throat problems, is radically antiviral and antibacterial. We can't do a study on licorice root. We have to extract it and make it into a chemical. Even more so, because of our current system, we have to make it into a patentable chemical, or near nobody wants to go for this. So I really would like to start a public policy foundation. I do have some stuff written up on how this would work already. I'm really open to help, and I need help. I can't do it myself because I'm also trying to support my family. Just navigate through the world. I'm going to cut it off now, Jason.
Thank you.
Go in the chat if you want to help. I'll put my email in the chat. Take it away, Jason. Let's change the world, you guys.
Rico's going to connect you with somebody.
Yeah. Check yourself.
Doctors, do you have anything to say on this before we move?
A lot. There's a lot to it. I think it's super cool. We got to be careful about developing about the reason behind some of these studies. These single agent studies, they're looking to cash out on some pharmaceutical drug. And so, yeah, this agency that really looks toward the plant and is much better than going after the single agent. But other than that, I think it's very cool information. It really shows that, wow, our relationship with plants and fungi are really what has changed our brains and probably have made our brains evolve over these thousands and thousands of years. Super cool.
Yeah, something that's interesting to me is just, do we understand the mechanism for how these psychedelic drugs can enhance like neuroplasticity and whatnot? I'm not sure. I haven't really kept up with the literature. Are you guys aware if we kind of understand mechanistically why this happens? Because, when you look at them, they're so similar to just neurotransmitters, a lot of them,
There's more. Some of them are, they affect translation. They transfer into this nucleus and affect translation. So they will change the reading, so they're epigenetic in a sense. It's really amazing the power that they have outside of just receptor activity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so much to learn still, I think.
So much to learn.
Well,
I think their primary target is known as 5-HT, right, Ian? I'm pretty sure. And so
yeah, I mean that's that's
So Yeah, so I think that's whole serotonergic. Did I say it right? Serotonergic. Yeah, that whole thing is related to the endocannabinoid system in ways that maybe there's sort of peripheral relation, because you know that when cannabinoids elicit their action, there's like a opening of ion channels and cyclic AMP accumulation. I mean, there's like so many things that happen biologically, and it would be kind of naive to think that they don't somehow all interact together. Like dopamine reward. How does dopamine reward interact again, kind of like with addiction? And how can cannabis intervene in that, and psychedelics also? I think these things are all related. It's kind of like the software that's in our brain, and we're just sort of throwing a monkey wrench in there and looking to see, what works and what doesn't.